Well, good morning. It's morning over here anyway. This is just a little video sort of for the team here in Laverton. We had a team meeting last night, which I think were actually awesome, really good. But a couple of people were away for various reasons, which is fine. But I'm just doing a short little video just so people can get sort of some of the main concepts of what we taught. Because as a team, it's super important that we're all on the same page and that we actually understand where we're going and the fact that we're actually going together, team together, everyone achieves more. So just going to do a few minutes and just outline a few of the principles and a few of the things that we looked at last night, because they're just timeless principles, and we're going to be talking and teaching out of the Old Testament right now, but the principles are sound for the new as well. Anyway, let's just begin. Reading glasses, how I hate them. Okay, so we're looking at First Chronicles 28, and First Chronicles 28 is it's like every part of the Bible. It's just rich and it's full. There's just so much in it. It's awesome. But in particular, when it comes to actually getting plans from God, stewarding those plans, passing them on to others, details responsibilities, because plans and promise, everything's got conditions attached to it in the Bible. Just because God says it doesn't mean it's going to happen, or it doesn't mean it's going to happen through you and with you, because a lot of stuff is conditional upon our heart attitude, upon us seeking God, searching God, worship, prayer lives, all of that sort of stuff. Everything is actually quite conditional. It's also based on desire. You can have what you want as long as you really want it. But so there's just some awesome principles in here, and So First Chronicles 28 is where where David has received the plans to build a temple. Now, in this literal setting, it's to build a physical temple, a building, a structure, and God gives David all of the plans by the Spirit. But we can translate it easily enough into the New Testament, because in the New Testament, I'm the temple, right? The people that we work with are temples, and we're called to build. We're called to build, go into all the world and make disciples. Well, David here, he wants to build the temple. So there's processes in place. There's things that need to be done structurally in order to set up the building. And it's exactly the same whether you're building a physical temple here or whether you're building the temples in the New Testament, which are individuals and people. Same principle. It's about building. And note that it's what's happening here is David is passing on instructions to Solomon for him to build the temple. And again, none of us are called to just be active or to be busy and just fill our lives with stuff. We're actually called to build, to develop, to put things together in such a way as it lasts, not just for us, but for multiple generations. And as you see here, we're going to see here in Chronicles, these plans by the Spirit and this commission to build goes from David to Solomon, his son, and on to his children, and no doubt his children's children. So everything's being built generationally and multi-generationally. So as a team, we can't just be thinking about what we're doing right now. We have to be thinking for the next generation and beyond. And so that's why it's important we all get these principles, and it's why important we all are on the same page, because what God wants to do here, just like anywhere else in the world, is actually significant, and it's setting things up for future generations. And it's an interesting thing here, because so it starts in, if we're going to look at verse 2, so it starts in verse 1 talking about David gathering together the people, the captains of hundreds, thousands, all that sort of stuff, the valiant men and the mighty men of valor. And then verse 2, then King David arose to his feet and said, "Hear me, my brethren and my people. I had it in my heart to build a house for the rest of the ark of the covenant of the Lord, the temple, blah, blah, blah. And I've actually made preparation to build it." Verse 3 is interesting. "But God said to me, you shall not build a house for my name." And there's reasons for that. David's been a man of blood. But it's an interesting concept when anyone in leadership receives vision, detailed vision, to build something in the future, and then actually makes appropriate preparation. So gathers people, gathers resource, is ready to do it. And God says, "No, I'm sorry, even though I gave you that plan, you're not the one that's going to build it. Somebody else is going to build it, and I'm actually going to choose them. I gave the plan to you. You've prepared. Awesome. That's sort of your role. But now I'm telling you, you're not going to do it, and give the plans to someone else. I'm not sure that many leaders, I think a lot of people would struggle with that concept. But again, this is about stewardship. See, even though there's been a desire in David's heart, God has put that there, and God has given him the plans by the Spirit. None of this is actually David's. He can't own it. He stewards it. God's given it to him, and now God is clearly instructing him to give it to someone else. It's a stewardship thing. And even as we go ahead and build this team and build the ministry out here in Laverton and beyond, it's never going to be ours, ever. We're stewarding it for the next generation and for generations to come. Interesting concept. And then he goes on. Verse 6. Now God said to me, it's your son Solomon who shall build my house and my courts, for I have chosen him to be my son, and I will be his father. Again, God is saying there's different roles and principles here. You know, someone's the son, someone's the father. Different roles. Solomon's the son, God's the father, and Solomon will be my son. He's got to learn his role and understand his function as a son, and I will be his father. I've got roles and responsibilities towards him, and I'll actually fulfill them. Fathership concepts coming from God to Solomon. But also, as we read through the passage, we'll see the same concepts come from David to Solomon again. Fathership. And then here's a bit of a kicker, right? So the plans have come to David, all the details, the preparations had. God said, no, it's going to get passed on to your son. And then verse 7, moreover, this is God, moreover, I will establish his kingdom forever. Sounds great. Let's be in. I'm in for that. Establish my kingdom forever. But there's conditions. Moreover, I will establish his kingdom forever if he is steadfast to observe my commandments and my judgments as it is this day. See, there's plans given by the Spirit, and there's a process. And the process is all about heart attitude. It's about commitment. It's about submission. It's a heart attitude. And all of those things I said, commitment, humility, serving, submission, they're to God, directly to God, from Solomon to God. Now, therefore, in the sight of all Israel and the assembly of the Lord and the hearing of the people, be careful to seek out the commandments of the Lord your God. So Solomon is being given this task to do, and he's being told, actually, be careful. Be careful. Make sure you seek out all of the commandments. So don't make your own mind up on anything. You don't get the right to make your own decisions here. Your decision is to serve me. So therefore, be careful to actually seek out all of the various commandments. Again, even though in a few passages, he's going to be given the plans by the Spirit, there's still details missing. And there's still things that he needs to actually turn his heart towards heaven and his heart towards God and actually seek out. And he's got to be careful to do that, because if he doesn't do that, he can't build right, or he can't build appropriately. And God wants his will to be done and his kingdom to come. He's not interested in our will being mixed up with it or our kingdom being involved in it. So be careful, verse 8, be careful to seek out all the commandments of the Lord your God, that you may possess this good land, and here's an inheritance thing, right? And leave it as an inheritance for your children after you. So this is God speaking to Solomon, and now Solomon's being commanded to build in such a way as it is generational, that it's a kingdom that will be there for his children after him. So we've gone from David to Solomon the son, to Solomon's children after him. God is not interested in doing short-term temporal work. We're building things up for the next people that will come along. And as for you, my son Solomon, know the God of your father, serve him with a loyal heart and with a willing mind. A loyal heart and a willing mind. We can be loyal to God, but have a will that's still bent to do our own way and our own concepts. So serve God with a loyal heart and a willing mind, for God searches all the hearts and he understands all the intents of the thoughts. So again, we can't hide anything from God. He sees my heart. It doesn't matter how I present to you and what I say to you. God sees my heart and he knows my heart. And my job is to keep my heart clean, keep my heart pure, and keep my heart humble and open before God. There's no point doing anything else because he actually sees it. But then, of course, the heart is deceitfully wicked. It's another story. But Solomon's being given clear instructions about his attitude and the focus of his life and the focus of his heart and his spirit, right? The end of verse 9. If you seek him, he will be found by you. That's not rocket science, is it? Lots of people wonder what the will of God is, what the plans of God are. Well, he's not hiding them from us. He says, if you seek me, you'll be found by me. If you don't seek me, you won't be found by me. It's not. If you look, you'll find. If you don't look, you won't find. It's just really quite simple. There's nothing amazing about the will of God or the plans and the purposes of God. He says, if you seek me, you will be found. He will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will cast you off forever. It's again quite simple, isn't it? It's got nothing to do with God being harsh or unfair or a judge. But if you seek him, you'll be found. He'll be found by you. If you forsake him, see, we're the ones that break the partnership. We're the ones that wreck the relationship. If you forsake him, he'll cast you off. And it's not really that he cast you off. You separated yourself from him. So David's saying to his son, don't do these things, boy. Don't do these things. What God wants to do is important, and how you approach God is equally important if you want to see it all fulfilled. And then verse 10, he says, consider now. So again, David's stressing the point of, be careful, seek out, set your heart, serve right, and consider now. Weigh all these things up, son. Weigh them all up. They're actually important. It's important that you get them. Consider now. For the Lord has chosen you to build a house for his sanctuary. And now he's given cautions and sort of he's laboured the challenge of the issue really up to this point. But now it's just be strong and do it. Just be strong and do it. Do whatever you need to do it. Be strong and do it. Here's the commands, the commissions. It's all there before you. Everything's there. God's ready, willing, and able. Now you just make the choice. Be strong and willing. Just go and do it, man. Just go and do it. And then verse 11, then David gave his son Solomon the plans, and it goes on and details things. And verse 12, the plans for all that he had by the Spirit. And jump down to verse 19. All this, said David, the Lord made me understand in writing by his hand upon me all the works of these plans. So God gave David the plans by the Spirit. Not only did God give David the plans, he, in verse 19, gave him understanding of the plans and the ability to set up everything up appropriately so that the plans could be outworked. And now it's really clear. He's giving his son Solomon all of the plans, all of the work of preparation that David has done. And see, David doesn't want to leave Solomon wondering in any area. He's giving everything he can to Solomon so that Solomon can actually complete the plan successfully, so that Solomon himself can be a success. Because if the next generation is going to receive something from Solomon, then Solomon has to be able to build it right. And so as a team, as we get together and gather together as a team, openness and honesty, transparency and communication is going to be so key. Sharing everything with others is so key. Not sharing enough to get them going, but leaving little bits out so that it becomes a struggle for them. That's not fathering. Fathers don't do that. Fathers don't set their children up to fail by holding stuff back that they know they should be giving to them or sharing with them. That's not how fathering works. And so David wants there's two things David wants. He wants the plan of God to be outworked, and he wants his son Solomon to succeed. So in order for Solomon to succeed, David gives all of the plans. Solomon's not left guessing anything. Oftentimes in ministry, oftentimes in teams, leadership teams, people are left guessing. They're left wondering, or they're given part of the information. Well, that's rubbish. That's not going to help anyone achieve anything of significance. If I'm always guessing, if you're always guessing, if we're wondering, if words are shared half with me and then half with someone else, that doesn't help us to build. It doesn't help us to work together as a team. It actually makes things harder because now we're going to trip up. And now we're not going to have the answers to things. So David, he's setting his son up for success, because then Solomon can set the next generation up for success. The methodology and the process that David is using now, Solomon is learning. And it'd be nice if Solomon went on and did it with others. You read the story and unfortunately he doesn't. But I mean, it doesn't matter. The principles are there. What you've been given, you can pass on. So David's giving it all to his son. And then again, if you just jump to verse 20, and once again, as David sort of, there's concepts in there from 12 down to 18. There's concepts of finance and resources and provision for the temple. It's truly is, it's real. You know, God's will is God's bill. And anyway, that's another teaching. But verse 20, and then David said to his son Solomon, be strong and of good courage, do it. So he just adds good courage there. He's already told him be strong and do it. But now he adds good courage, because the plan of God is bigger than Ben-Hur, always is. And it's always something that's beyond our abilities and our capabilities. And it's something that should be daunting to us. It should be a little bit nervy, and we should know that we're unable to do it. So this final encouragement is, you know, be strong and of good courage, mate. You're going to need some courage and some guts. You're going to need some fortitude. Be strong and of good courage and do it. And that's going to be a word for us as a team. As we go forward, there's going to be challenges, whether they be within the team, outside of the team, in the ministry. And we're going to need strength and courage. And then we're going to need to make that decision to just go ahead and do it. It's going to be really, really important. But verse 29 is interesting, because sometimes we determine when a person is ready to do something, and we're not the ones qualified to make that call. God's the one. But it's all right to actually acknowledge someone's weakness or someone's area of lack in order to then strengthen that area so that they can do well. Chapter 29, verse 1. Furthermore, King David said to all the assembly, right? So now go back and read. The assembly is chapter 28, verse 1. It's captains over hundreds, captains over thousands. It's men of valor. It's mighty men of valor. It's leaders and people of significance, right? So he's talking to those people now, right? And he makes this statement publicly about his son. My son Solomon, whom alone God has chosen, is young and inexperienced, and the work is great. He's actually not putting Solomon down. He's just stating a fact. Solomon is young and inexperienced, and the work is great. But remember, he's talking now to his leaders. His leaders. And really you can see the concept here. One of the concepts that's in this is acknowledging Solomon's lack, Solomon's weakness, Solomon's immaturity, but he's not putting Solomon down. What he's actually doing is encouraging those who are his existing leadership. This is how Solomon is. This is the picture. God has chosen him and chosen him alone. He's young and inexperienced. You blokes have got some knowledge and some experience. You've got some runs on the board. You're the men of valor, the mighty men of valor. You're my mighty men. Now, you've got some skills that this boy doesn't have. You throw your weight behind this. I'm trying to set him up so he doesn't fail. Now, I'm dying, because that's what's happening here, right? David's dying. In the next chapter, he's dead. But before he does so, he's setting up the existing leadership team to support and encourage Solomon. Everyone needs to be involved in the success of this boy, and therefore everyone's involved in the success of the plan and the purpose of God. So you guys get on board. Note that he's young and experienced, and help him out where you can. You could really read that into what he's saying. Again, that's a father's heart towards his son, setting him up for success. And if you read 28, 12 down to 18, you'll see that God provided certain things for the preparations of the temple, and he provided them in abundance. But you'll also see that because David was so sold out, David himself prepared things out of his own personal wealth and his own personal possessions. Verse 2, 29:2. For the house of my God, I have prepared with all my might gold for things to be made of gold, silver for things of silver, bronze, wood, onyx stones, marble slabs. Verse 3, moreover, because I have set my affection on the house of my God, I have given to the house of my God over and above all that I prepared for the holy house. So over and above all that I have prepared, my own special treasure of gold and silver. It's always an interesting thing when people want you to fund their vision, but they're not prepared to commit themselves. David's bought in. God's given him the plans. God's prepared a lot of things, and he's given resources, but then God's given excess, and out of the excess, it's now really clear David's setting a principle and a practice in place. I'm not asking you to do anything I haven't done. I'm not asking you to commit to something I haven't committed to. I've prepared abundantly out of my own personal treasure for this. That's going to be a challenge for us as a team as we go forward and things begin to build and to grow. There's going to be challenges on our time. There's going to be challenges on various resources, and everyone's got to be in. Everyone's got to be in. And David sets the principle here, right? He says, God's given, I've given. And then in verse 6, the leaders respond to what God has given, the example David has set with what he has given. And he says, then the leaders of the fathers, the leaders of the tribes of Israel, the captains of thousands, blah, 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 they offered willingly. See, David didn't tell them to give. David set the example, they followed the example, and they offered willingly, and they gave for the work of the house of God. It's time, it's resources, it's emotional energy, it's whatever. They gave willingly in order to see this thing a success. They didn't want to leave anything undone, and so that Solomon was struggling at the outset. They didn't want to do that. They gave willingly and they offered willingly, and everyone was incredibly generous. And it says whoever had precious stones gave them, and then the people rejoiced, for they had offered willingly. It's always an interesting thing. Lots of, being asked to give is, people can give and they can do so grudgingly, and that's not the right way to do it. But when everything's done willingly with a loyal heart, and they offered willingly to the Lord, and King David then also rejoiced also. Again, there's so many awesome team principles in this passage, and it's really worth just reading over again and going over again. And I just skimmed the surface there. You can go, it's the Bible, right? You can go into it so much deeper, and you can look at things from so many different angles. But there's some awesome principles in there for us to learn, embrace, and apply as a team, a young team. We're a young team. I'm not saying we're all young in ministry, but we're young as a team. And there's a heap of team dynamics we've got to learn. But big thing is we are stewarding now something that God wants to set up for future generations. We're going to have to keep our eyes on him, our hearts on him, be fixed on him. We're going to have to be deliberate, strong, of good courage. Ultimately, we've just got to do it. And there's going to be challenges to give and to commit. And I'm really not just talking money there. Please don't see money. Don't see a dollar symbol. I'm not talking about that. Giving is so multifaceted. But everyone's got to be on the same page as we move forward. And at least in this example, clearly, every single person is on the same page. They have the same plan. They have the same outworking of the plan. And they have the same commitment and stewardship to push this plan forward, not just for Solomon, but for future generations. That's really how we've got to see things, and it's working together is going to be our biggest challenge, because I think God does everything else really well, but often with us working together is the challenge. So just some thoughts, a few little insights. I think some good chewy stuff in there. Bless you all. Have a great day.